Oh, I'm getting nervous. Is it flooded?
Don't think so.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Welcome, half-ass viewers. If you're new here, welcome to the struggle. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back to the chaos. In our last episode, we cleaned and painted the engine bay, the frame, and the wheel wells, and a bunch of other things. We also rebuilt the entire front suspension. In this episode, we clean up all the wiring and put the cursed engine into the car. In one of our previous episodes, this motor hit the ground hard. Did it get damaged unknowingly when it hit the floor? We took it apart as best as we could, but we are still not sure if anything got hurt. Will it run? Well, stay with us to find out, because this is the episode we've all been waiting for. So here we are, we got the engine on the hoist. We're going to have to lift it up, obviously. Make sure we clear the front end of the car. This is always a little bit nerve-wracking. We never like to have this much weight hanging so high, suspended above the ground. But it worked out okay. So here we are, slowly and carefully dropping it into the frame. We want to make sure that we get the engine mounts lined up. We also have to get the angle correct. We have to hold it so that it mates up with the transmission bell housing correctly. Got to make sure none of the lines are caught on anything. It's a lot of things to look at. But we did finally get it in. It's sitting down on its frame, its engine mounts, and now we're putting the valve covers on, torquing them down. Got to be careful not to torque them too much because they can distort and leak. These old stainless steel stamped covers are prone to do that. And we did have a problem actually with some slight leakage later. Now comes the tedious chore of putting all the brackets back on for the accessories like AC, alternator, all those kinds of things, power steering pump. And one of the things that we ran into on this car, again, it's one of these things with these old cars. Many hands have touched them. Many things have been changed, modified, swapped out. And as is the case, this AC bracket didn't really line up correctly with our AC compressor. We had to tweak a few things. We had to loosen a couple brackets on the back of these things, take a hammer to it, bend it a little bit. Finally got that to work correctly, but it's still not quite right. We've looked at the manual and everything seems to be correct as far as pieces, but yeah, a little bit too much tweaking needed to be done to get that to work. Here we are cleaning off the power steering pump and the bracket. Here's the fuel line, just hitting it with the wire brush, get all the rust off of this. We made sure that the ID was clean. There was no rust on the ID, and we blew it out to make sure it was clean. We wanted to use that over again, but we are using a new fuel pump. And we always like to put a little RTV gasket maker on both sides of the gasket just to make sure that there's no issues. We're using our endoscope here to make sure that the fuel pump actuating arm is sitting correctly on the camshaft. I tell you, this endoscope is one of the best things we ever bought. It's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with it to get down inside of things and to see what's going on. Strongly recommend everybody have one of these things. You can get them really cheap now. We actually have a link in their description for an Amazon product that we would recommend, and if you use that link, we get a small commission at no cost to you, and it helps us out tremendously. So take a look at all the different items that we've used in this video. You'll see them in the description. So now we're putting on, again, pulleys, other things, and here's the dipstick going in. It didn't quite fit quite right because it was different heads were used before, and these are stock heads, but we got it to work okay. So now we're trying to get the alternator lined up and hooked up with its brackets, but once again we find that the bracket that came with the car is not the right one. Had to straighten it out a little bit, had to open up that hole for the bolt that passes through there to pass through cleanly. Well, we made it work. So back to more accessories, tightening up the power steering pump, taking off tape on the intake manifold. Now we're going to mount up the old carburetor. The tape was there just to make sure nothing fell in there while we were doing our work. Fuel lines getting attached, all sorts of different hoses. crankcase, ventilation, power steering, hoses, things like that. Here's the hoses being hooked up. Checking the brake fluid. It's a little bit low, but it was okay. We thought we'd just leave it the way it was. Snap that all back together. Cleaning off the starter. Nice starter. Forgot what brand this was, but it's a really strong starter. Very small. I mean, if you remember what the stock starters look like on these things, they're just gigantic and they weigh a ton. I love this little starter. Cleaning off the radiator, making sure that's nice and clean, pass air through it. And now we get into the wiring harness. I personally love this kind of stuff. It's tedious for most people. It's confusing. But with the manual and a little bit of experience, I find it to be very relaxing and fun. Touching up the front end of the car here, we covered up all the fenders and everything. You got to make sure you don't hit anything with overspray, because we're going to prime this, spray paint it. My son is a little impatient. He doesn't like to let things dry properly, but he came up with a kind of ingenious solution to this. He takes a heat gun and carefully, slowly applies the heat gun to the freshly applied paint, and that dries it out pretty quick. So kudos to him. He figures out ways to do things a little bit quicker, because time is pretty precious at this point in our lives. Letting it dry, going to put another couple coats on. It's going to look pretty. Remember, all this was prepped in the last episode. Got all the crud off of there, degreased it nicely. So this is going to look very nice when it's done. And there it is. Not bad. Remember, folks, this is not a frame-off restoration, but it's a decent restoration. It's a half-assed restoration. It's pretty darn good for a whole lot less. So now I'm going to take off all the overspray protection, all the blankets and everything. You can see how much we put on there, because we really don't want that stuff getting anywhere. So now the radiator is getting put in. Going to hook up all the hoses. We also had a problem with this piece on top that holds the radiator in. It didn't quite line up right, but it made it work. Tightening it down, making sure it's nice and snug. We don't want that going anywhere. And back to the wiring harness. Well, folks, as you see, I am elbow deep in this wiring harness mess, trying to make some sense out of what I'm seeing here with the help of our beautiful schematic in our beautiful 67 Buick manual. This is the resistor wire. This is the wire that is used to power the ignition points after the car has started and is running. GM engineers wisely designed this so that it would run off of about 8-9 volts DC once the car had started, to prolong the life of the points. Once the car, but it got 12 volts when it started, but then it reverted back to a lower voltage while it was running to preserve the point life. So this is the resistor wire for that, but you can see the end has been cut and terminated, crimped with some shrink tubing, as has this end. Notice the charred, burned look here. Something did smoke on us a while back. We didn't know where it was coming from. We thought it was the resistor wire, but in a different spot. So it must have shorted out against something. Not sure what. There's obviously a lot of stuff down here that it might have shorted out against, especially those two big terminals down there. Don't think that was it, but so this resistor wire going all the way back this way, back to this section of the harness that I just nicely wrapped up, and somewhere over here, oh yeah, it's underneath here, sorry, yeah, it's underneath here. It was connected, it's spliced with this yellow wire, which is actually the wire that gets 12 volts from, oh, is it down here? No, it's not. It was underneath this section here. There's a splice in here where that resistor wire comes all the way up to here, splices with this yellow and pink wire. The yellow wire is coming off the starter, and that's what gives it its 12 volts at start. And when you let go of the key and it goes to run, it then powers the points through that resistor wire via the pink wire, which goes to the coil. It's loose at the other end, so it hasn't been doing anything. Not sure what the deal is with this, but we're going to have to straighten this all out. There's a couple more splices in here that do not look factory. I don't know what that is. We're going to have to revert to the wiring manual schematics and see what's going on here. So, wish us luck getting this spaghetti mess straightened out, but we'll get there. When we were figuring out the exhaust necessary for the Riviera, we knew we needed a brand new system, but we're watching the budget. We discovered Classic Exhaust Systems in Madison, Ohio. The team over there was incredibly generous and offered us a great discount to help the Riviera Revival cross the finish line. If you all like what we're doing here at Half-Assed Restorations, please go show them some support. Head over to their shop or website for your own classic car needs. Let's make sure they know how much we appreciate them backing the channel. And if you wouldn't mind, please tell them Half-Assed Restorations sent you their way.
What do you do about this?
We have to do something.
Listen, pal.
About what?
That hole there.
That hole right there. All right, well,
Drain plug is in, yes?
drain plug is
Put a
in.
wine cork in there, make it look.
So what's the capacity, though? Where's the
5.
You think it's 5?
It's almost always 5. Yeah.
General.
Capacities and lubricants.
Bingo.
What am I looking at here?
Oh, you're looking at a book? You're looking at a manual for a 67 Riv?
Crankcase refill with dry oil.
engine and with a dry oil filter. Asterisk? Asterisk. So a dry engine
5.
is 4.2, but since there's an asterisk there, and we have it, well, we don't have a dry oil filter,
Well,
so
it's not. It wasn't filled up.
5 is fine.
5 is fine.
5 is fine.
This is break-in engine oil. Okay.
Let's see.
I think that's all right.
Yeah, that's what this is for. Lucas, high zinc, engine brake-in oil. Make sure you spill that all over. You know that container was 6 quarts.
No, it wasn't.
No, it's 5. You know, some jerk was doing wiring harness and I see clips of wire in there.
Great.
And now we got to fill up the old trans fluid.
We don't really know how much to put in there, do we?
No.
What it says in there.
They usually like 12 quarts.
But the torque converter's empty.
What is it?
I don't want to put too much in there because until the engine starts and starts
GM
filling,
trans fluid. All right, here we go.
I'd say just how much is in that?
It doesn't say.
No, it's. Can you take a look though at the side?
No. Yeah, I can't see that.
It's probably plenty.
So now we're getting ready to prime the engine. What I'm pointing to there is a tool meant to drive the oil pump through the distributor hole. We also have our handy dandy endoscope again. Got it pointed to a place where we can see oil coming up through the galleys. We tried to turn the shaft of that tool with a cordless drill, but it just didn't have enough power, so we put our plugged-in drill on that thing because it takes a lot of force to spin that thing. So we got the pump turning now via that tool, and if you watch the screen, there comes the oil. We got oil pressure coming up through all the galleys. This is a great practice to do on an engine that's brand new. You ought to make sure that oil is everywhere. We also wanted to make sure that the pump got primed correctly. If you remember in one of our previous episodes, we packed that thing with Vaseline, as the manual said to do, to make sure it doesn't cavitate. So now we're filling up the radiator with coolant and water, again to make sure everything is ready, and as well as power steering fluid. We're trying to top off all the fluids that we can think of so that we don't have to do it when the engine, if the engine starts, I should say. We're pulling out all the plugs. We're going to check them. In fact, we decided to replace them with new plugs. Can't hurt, right? New plugs is always a good thing. And now we're lining up the engine to be at exactly 12 degrees before top dead center. That way we can align the distributor correctly, or as close as we can get to it visually, to make sure that we have our distributor in the right spot and timed correctly. It's kind of difficult getting the distributor in to the engine. The helical gear that's on the end of the distributor meshes with a helical gear on the end of the camshaft. And as you get it engaged, it moves and rotates. So you have to kind of play with that to make sure that it winds up in the right spot. So now we're looking at the reluctor and the pickups in the distributor. We want to make sure that number one, or at least one of those pickups, is point to point, because it's at this point that the spark actually gets created in the circuitry. When the distributor is lined up in the correct spot and those pickups are in the right spot, you know you will get your spark to fire at that point. So we're putting our rotor back into the distributor, and we're taking our time here. We want to make sure we got this lined up right. Now the cap is going back on. We have made a mark on the power steering pump bracket with tape and a Sharpie, and it lines up to a corresponding mark on the distributor, so we know where number 1 should be pointed to, generally speaking, for timing purposes. Important when you first fire up an engine.
Well, dear viewers, seems like this is the day. The motor is in, the wiring harness is done. Yeah, I know, it looks a little bad right now, but these are all temporary wires right now just to hook up this temporary tachometer, because we're going to try to start this puppy up today, and we got to keep the RPMs at about 2,500 or so, up or down a little bit. Cannot let this thing idle when you break in the camshaft, otherwise you will wipe out that cam. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking. It's one thing when you've taken an engine out of a car that everything else has been left undisturbed, but we've changed everything here. Wiring harness is different, new I should say, everything's been redone. We have a lot of new parts in here. We have gone through everything to make sure that we're ready to start this thing. So we got our carb is hooked up. We're going to be priming it. We're going to pour some gas down this vent hole, make sure that the bowls are filled, because we want this thing to start up right away. And with a dry carburetor, that won't happen. And I'm not kidding when I tell you, if you just crank this thing for a few seconds without oil pressure or it running correctly, you're going to wipe that cam out. So we've got our distributor in. This car has an HEI distributor in it, and we've lined it up as best as we can with cylinder number 1. So this mark on this tape, I'm not sure if you can see that down there, but there's another mark on the distributor. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see this, but we got a mark on the distributor lined up with this mark. We have our trusted and true Sun Pro inductive timing light hooked up. Got the pickup on plug wire number 1. It's connected to the battery. It's within easy reach. The distributor is snug, but the tightening, the clamp down here that holds the distributor is a little bit loose, so that we can turn the distributor. Vacuum advance is not hooked up yet because we don't need that right now. I think we're going to double check these fuel lines one more time, make sure they're tight, because we don't want a lot of gas spilling all over the place. So it's got oil in it. It's got some trans fluid in it. It's got some power steering fluid in it. It's got coolant in it. We're fully expecting it to have to burp a few times and fill the coolant up a little bit. But what we're going to do here is try to start it up. Oh, one other thing that we did. We added an aftermarket relay here. This guy. It's just your standard single pole, single throw relay. It is supplying a full 12 volts to our distributor, to our HEI pickup for battery. It's pulling the power off the battery, running straight to the HEI, but through that relay. And we had a little bit of trouble trying to figure out what to use as a trigger wire for that. We believe we have identified a wire that we can use that is energized in run and start. So plug wires have been installed, plugs are gapped, torqued down, exhaust is hooked up, all the belts are hooked up for the AC, the alternator, power steering pump. I believe we're ready to go. The only way to know for sure is to try it out, right? Also, very good practice, have a fire extinguisher ready. You never know. If you need one and you don't have one in times like this, when you got all sorts of things happening, not a good situation. So,
Nothing in the way of the distributor, not going to get your hand cut by anything, no wires in the fan.
well, wires are clear, everything looks okay there. Got my wrench here. Wrench is in left pocket for distributor. Fire extinguisher is right there. All right, let's see what happens here.
All right, should I pump it up a little bit?
1 or 2.
You don't think this hood's going to vibrate off, do
That's
you?
what I was wondering about. They were going to watch that.
Because it's heavy. All right.
Hold on a second. Safety glasses.
I'm going to put it into start or on.
Okay.
I heard a relay.
Yeah.
Windows are working, okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to give it 2 pumps.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, let's see. It is now 45. All right, I'm gonna feather the throttle, right?
Well, just see if it starts. Okay, hold on.
Tach's not working.
Tech's not working?
Nah.
Oh, hold on a second. Not hooked up. Okay, well, it started up right away. It backfired a bit. Let's see here, hold on. Not sure why it backfired like that. All right, I put a little bit more gas in, hold on.
Okay.
Is that your timer beeping?
No.
All right.
I don't know what's beeping. I think it's... All
Okay,
right.
let's try this
All right,
again. Give it
Tach's...
a couple of pumps again.
All right, hold on. You're going to pump it.
Yep.
1, 2, and then what? Just start it in...
Yep. Yeah, I can't get enough of a timing reading on this thing. Let's see if it's...
I made it up to almost 2,000 there.
Try to advance it a little bit.
Pump it up again.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep. Okay, hold it. That sounds like it was worse. Okay, so I rotated this way. I want to go that way a bit.
Keep pumping it again or not just
Give
start
it
it?
one pump. Try it.
Here we go.
Go. Okay, hold on.
Oh, man. Is it getting better, you think? Or
I think it is, but let's make sure there's no vacuum leaks anywhere. It's not looking like it.
Done.
Okay, let's try it again.
Oh, I'm getting nervous. Is it flooded?
Don't think so.
All right, ready?
Yep.
Huh.
Because it's getting spark. It's backfiring, though. Don't know why. It's got to be a timing thing.
It was right at this point that the camera in my POS phone decided to give out. Of course, we didn't even notice at the time. We were way too focused on figuring out why the engine wouldn't stay running. But despite the massive frustration and disappointment about this camera glitch, we did manage to get the engine fired up and started for the first of our 3 camshaft break-in cycles by tweaking the timing a little bit more. That's exactly where we pick things back up. Stop, stop, stop!
Holy cow.